Good evening, race fans. Welcome back. We are now in round 6. Here visiting Spain in Los Arcos, Navarra. 3.9 kilometers, 15 corners. A true driver's track. It doesn't have the long straights of Monza or the flowing rhythm of Spa, but instead it demands precision, braking, and traction. Two things that or three things that these Porsche Cup cars don't typically enjoy. But the lap mixes slow hairpins, medium speed sweepers, and quick direction changes, making it perfect for a good evening of racing. Mistakes here are costly because the track punishes drivers with long runoffs and lost momentum. We've had a few races here in the past. We've had the FIA Games qualifier here, as a matter of fact, and even in the last staging of our friends there out of Cayman, they had a race here at Navarra. Daniel Roberts and a few other drivers, I believe there's only Kurt Moss and Julian Narcisse who were the only ones who did not, or were the only other ones from this grid that would have entered and participated. And that was a battle. Taj Edwards, as well, as a matter of fact, he gave us some good racing. A last lap battle between himself and a Hungarian. His name does miss me as it stands. But the championship storylines after round 5. Felipe Yiel leads now with 156 points. 13 points ahead of Estefano Barrero, who sits with 143 points. He got laced with a penalty last week. It dropped him down the grid down to P7, so a huge loss of points for him. But that doesn't mean anything. It means he can he is a consistent driver, and he's been a consistent regular race winner. So that doesn't mean anything for him here, as he's only 2 tenths down on Daniel Moreno there, sitting in P1. This is practice, so we haven't gone too far in as yet, but as they finish dialing in their setup, their final runs. We've had practice all week, and the drivers cannot wait to get started. We have a few drivers missing. One of them, the popular Jaden Harrison, who is down with illness. So we'll be missing him, unfortunately. And a few others. We have one new driver, Samir Kaduro, from Cuba. We pray for Cuba as well. And we have the returning Bruno and Mikhaili from Brazil in their second race here at the Jsra. So we have about 8 minutes remaining up until the start of qualifying. The midfield battles, as a matter of fact, Miguel Beltran and Daniel Moreno, they are fighting between 4th and 5th. They're separated by 6 points, 119 to Miguel Beltran and 113 to Daniel Moreno, who in the first 2 races had some poor luck. But after Monza, he's been picking up his boots and he's been drawing closer. And again, there are 2 drop races at the end of the season. He's still not out of the running. 6 is it? I believe, as he would be in with 93 points. And already used up 2 of his drop races, so yeah, his view right now is not going to look too promising as the sessions go on. Daniel Roberts fighting for P3 in the standings. He's 3 points below Estefano. He is one that has had some poor luck as well. He got a penalty that relegated him to lose some points as well last week, due to an incident with one of the Panama drivers, who this evening we're not seeing any Panama drivers, as a matter of fact. So unfortunately we'll be missing them in action, and you know that they would have loved to have been here. But that being said, so we'll go over the top 10. Felipe Yiel is on pole position, or top, it's a pole position. He's on the top step of the podium right now, 13 points ahead of Estefano Barrero, 156 to 143. 3 points ahead of Daniel Roberts is Estefano with 140 points. Then you have a little drop there between Miguel, who is at 119. Daniel Moreno 113, Jaden Harrison in P6 with 93, Evan Ballerino in P7 with 78 points, Tash Edwards, seeing him there in P6 there, he's in P8 in the standings, tied with Mikhail Charles to 70 points apiece. Daniel Velez as well, separated by a point. He's at 69, David Tuta 63, Kurt Moss in P12 with 42, Dominic Charles in P13 with 41, Peter Arundel in P14 with 35, and Vincent Da Silva in P15 with 34 points. The points do go all the way down. We've had 52 entrants, and points have gone all the way down to 32 points. So we'll continue to watch that as the session continues onwards. But yep, we have one of my favorite tracks to watch racing at when you get some really good action. So stay tuned to what is coming. Let's put the intervals up. Or the gap, let me say. It's a huge disparity, especially between Daniel Roberts and P1. Daniel Moreno did say that the setup that the Jamaicans had last week was ideal, and they said they'll be working on their own this week. Have they figured the formula for what is to come here this evening? Only time will tell. Mikhail Charles as well, he himself down the grid, further down the grid, but we'll see how it goes as the session continues on. This is just practice. I'm sure we'll see the drivers dropping that time and the pace down further as the session continues. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Grab your popcorn, get some water, get your dinner if you want. Prepare for racing as we head into round 6 at the Circuito de Navarra. So with 2 minutes remaining, drivers still just preparing for their qualifying session ahead of them. We have 2 sprint races after the qualifying session. First one will be 20 minutes, the second will be 25. Points go all the way down to 15 points. So with 17 drivers on the grid this evening, a few saying they didn't want to learn the track. So we'll see them coming in for next week as we head to Spa. We changed from Snetterton for round 7 to Spa. The finale. So, ladies and gentlemen, just Bear with us as the drivers continue to begin their bid for the top step of the podium this evening. And the wait is over. We are back with racing in 2026. The season kicks off with the Porsche Cup. Dynamic conditions, 8 iconic tracks, drivers throughout the Caribbean and the world fighting for glory in the new revamped Porsche Cup. This is promising to be the best season yet at the Jsra as we lead into season 2 with the GT3 Championship. Drivers fighting for the top step of the podium. They've returned for the fight and the glory will be theirs. And side by side the two drivers as it's a spurt race down the Kemmel Straight. And Mikhail Charlton now sends a move down the inside into turn 7. Huge lockup. Amaris Garcia sees the error and runs away with it. 7 Mile Racing chasing in the background for P1. The season begins January 23rd, 2026. Sponsored by Shotels. So we ride along board now with Stefano Barrera getting his first lap on the way. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get going, as he starts his first lap now, we ask you to please leave a like and a subscription if you like what you're seeing. Support your best drivers by leaving their names in the chat. As we see Stefano on his first flying lap for a hot lap. And he is in the bid. Had the second fastest time right in front of Kurt Moss. Right behind Daniel Moreno, Felipe Yu. We've seen him in the past put a very good bid in. His issue is his starts, man. His launch has always been his biggest issue. But his race pace always something to watch and behold. So we'll just give the first lap to Stefano, and then we'll get going with commentary as the drivers will be pushing to see who can get that top step on the way. And at 21.9 for Sector 1, 28.10 for Sector 2, 20.2 for Sector 3. As he comes around the final corner to cross the line, where will this, well, obviously we'll put him on pole, but where will the benchmark be? 1:36.81 by the Colombian driver. Brilliant lap there, and his time isn't over as yet. We'll ride along David Tuta in P2, 138.9. Miguel Beltran, Daniel Velez, Kurt Moss as well. Times are coming in fast. Let's just take a quick look at Daniel Moreno, current championship leader. Oh, sorry, not current, but current fastest lap from practice at least. We'll watch to see what he can do. Felipe Gil as well just puts in his lap with a 137.581. So he is about 7/10. That's a huge gap between P1 and P4. So Estefano maybe had some sand blocks in the block. As we see Daniel Moreno now coming to cross the line. And that will put him in P2. With a 137.151. Miguel Beltran in P3. Felipe Gil in P4. Daniel Roberts in P5. Let's take a look at Felipe Gil as he continues on. But Estefano, he is still improving in Sector 3 there. But Sector 1 wasn't that good. He did a relatively slow 22.01 in Sector 1. So not the best one for him. As he comes across the line, 136.808, 136.688, my apologies. So he does improve and pushes that benchmark just that much further. Miguel Beltran looked good in the final sector, but still nowhere to go. Daniel Roberts, though, we watch to see what can he do. He is in the championship bid. He moves up into P2 with a 137.133. Tash Edwards, where is he? He has not set an indicative time as yet, but he does come to cross the line. And that's his first lap. No, not looking like the fastest so far, but goes in the top 10. P6 with a 137.841. Kurt Moss now pushed down 2 positions behind his teammate. But Daniel Moreno, though, he's the one that we should be watching here as he comes across the line. And I think he's going to take the top step. The final sector, not so pretty. No, he is down by a 10th on behind his teammate in Estefano. Noble Racing top 2. Jsra in P3. Miguel Beltran, though, he's looking rapid. But the times are still going in. Estefano, he is going to be finishing up his final lap here. Will he push the benchmark that much further? No, it doesn't seem so. 136.707, so a 10th off of him. Miguel Beltran was the one that we were watching. Sector 1 and 2 was rapid. Sector 3 and 4, what does that do for him? It puts him on pole position. Miguel Beltran, for the first time this season, is on provisional pole, and he is looking very rapid. So is Daniel Moreno, who is improving in Sector 1 and 3. Wonder where this will put him as we continue onwards, as he comes in and through the final sector here. He has 2 corners to go as he heads into the deep right-hander now onto the back stretch. He'll be pushing. Wasn't rapid in Sector 1, was rapid in Sector 2, improved in Sector 3. Where will this put him in Sector 4 for the final lap? For his evening qualifying, 136.732, so he does improve, but still nothing enough to bring him out into the top podium position. With Deville Park now late to the party, where will he be going? And dress as well. We'll watch to see what he can do. Michael Charles currently sitting in P13. He himself hasn't done enough laps to really put a bid in, but there he goes up into P9. Davil Part now does finish as well. Samir Kaduro does move up and he goes into P10. is Michael Charles Samir in P9. Andres Quevedo, I believe, is the only other one. Felipe Yield still on a hot lap though. Nope, he pulls to the side and heads back in. Andres Quevedo is the next one that we'll watch now. Where will this put him? And that's his last lap. Doesn't look like it got registered. Felipe Yield limping back to the pits. Is he out of gas or is he just going to call it a day? Nope, still hear the car driving. So the only driver left, 9 minutes remaining. It's a 10-minute qualifying session, but you get 3 laps in the session. So where it will put you is entirely up to you, but you gotta finish before the 10 minutes. So this is the last lap for Deville Park. He sits in P14. Points do go down to P15. And he is improving. So as it stands, he's looking at least P12 on the board. Could even go down to P11 by the looks of it, depending on this final sector. As he comes now to cross the line, 9:58, 9:59, 10 minutes on the dot. He crosses, does not cross the line in time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is his starting position in P14. That's going to be disappointing for him. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Miguel Beltran for the first time this season starts on pole position in race 1 at least with a 1:36.589. Estefano Barrero in P2 with a 900th down. Daniel Moreno in P3, a 10th down. Felipe Yield in P4. Daniel Roberts has his 2 title competitors, one in front of him and one 2 cars in front of him as well. Tash Edwards, Kurt Moss, and Daniel Roberts, P5, P6, P7 of Jamaican teams. David Tuta in P8. Samir Kaduro for his debut here at the Jsra sits in P9. Mikhail Charles in P10. Daniel Velez in P11. Francisco Salazar, he sits in P12. Joshua Brady P13. Davil Park P14. Bruno Yoshihara in P15. Julian Narcisse in P16. Richard Dial in P17. And Kimani Eastman in P18. Mikhaili sits in P19 and Andres Quevedo sits in P20. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a 20-minute sprint race on the way. Again, especially at turn 1, it's very wide, so it's going to lend to some very interesting moves here. Very excited to see what the drivers will be strategizing as the racing begins. But P1 to 4, all Colombia. P5 to 7, Jamaica. We have one more Colombian, then a Cuban, then a Trinidadian to round out the top 10. Make it chat with Estefan in the
green, green, green.
Let's hit. So well, so Daniel Roberts now right between himself and David Tuta. The shoulders are out. The elbows are out, my apologies, as he goes to make a move there on the Colombian. Now chases his countryman, but it's two will go side by side here into turn 7. And they continue on this battle onwards. And this is going to be fun to watch. Still, side by side, We've seen Taj do some miraculous moves in the GT3 classification. What can he do here this evening as he fights against these drivers in front of him? And who is that going down? That's Kurt Moss. Another torrid race for him as he's turned in the other direction looking at the other drivers. I don't even want to know, but I know the last time it was because of me that looked at him. Kurt, we'll talk about it again after the race, brother. But that being said, David Tutor chasing down the likes of the Jamaica now. He lost that position to him. Let's take a quick look there. What had happened? I saw an incident with Rich Dial. It doesn't look like it's anything to do with Kurt. No, thank God. But we'll take a look there. Kurt Moss. This was his incident. So he was going. He's going, and yep, there it is. That's Samir Kadura, the Cuban, in his debut, taking the back end of Mr. Massive. That pain. Few minutes of racing, first 3 minutes, and this has been, wow, dramatic to say the least. Kurt Moss losing 11 positions now. Man, my heart goes out to him every week. He does his best, he fights his battle, but somehow always ends up being taken out. He said it earlier today, if it wasn't for bad luck, he'd never have any luck. Boy, brother. But that being said, right behind David Tutor, Daniel Roberts, these two have been battling it out since day one, or from the beginning of this race at least. Daniel fighting it out for P6 and P7. Taj Edwards a little bit ahead. It stands. The top three has checked out, 2 seconds ahead of P4 and Felipe Yield. So they look like they're just going to be working together for the foreseeable future. But there you see Daniel Roberts took a look on the inside, but had nowhere to go. Ooh, and that was not the best entry. And there you see him again getting in front of who was that? I believe that was Javier Salazar Garcia. So we'll now have more work to do. His teammate out in Jaden Harrison this week with illness, unfortunately, so prayers for him. But Daniel Roberts now will have quite a bit of work to get back through the field. But this is a fight for P1. Miguel Beltran versus Daniel Moreno. And we'll watch to see what can happen here. Tash Edwards, clean race for him so far. Mikhail Charles as well. He's moved up 4 positions. So we'll continue to watch what happens with them. But yeah, as it stands, this looks like the pecking order for now. There we see Samir and Javier Salazar, the two fighting it out. This is a battle for P8 and P9. Daniel Roberts there right behind as well. Samir taking a look on the inside now. And the door looked like it was shut, but the rubbing might be racing here this evening. Daniel Roberts seeing if he can get a moment to get through right now as well. Was that a little bit of touch there? Looked a little bit aggressive, but hey, racing is racing here. Daniel Roberts now moves up into P9. Javier Salazar now under threat by Francisco Garcia. Joshua Brady and David Tutor right behind. David Tutor looked like he saw a move available for him. Took it on the inside. pushes his elbows wide. Joshua Brady now relegated and loses another position. Ooh, that looked very hard coming in for Joshua Brady. Luckily, no incidents there at hand. So Samir Kadura now chasing down, or being chased, my apologies, by Daniel Roberts. Daniel Velez right up ahead of them in P7. David Tuta, he himself just trying to make his way through as well and gain as much as he can possibly get in these next few stages. We'll bring up the battle box. Just to keep the racing underway. 6 tenths the gap between himself. Samir Kadura, though, he's just being hounded by Daniel Roberts. And even if you look a little bit further up, Mikhail Charles, he's right there being chased by Daniel Velez. So that's going to be another interesting watch as we continue onwards. The top three as well, still fighting it out, just keeping it clean for now. We've seen it in the past where they just keep it clean. Maybe you'll see some dramatics at later stages of the race, but Daniel Moreno, he is fighting for points. So, as well as Miguel Beltran, these are fighting for P4 and P5 in the championship. So, never a better time for them to gain an advantage on each other. We'll watch to see what can happen there as we continue racing. But David Tuta now, they're just pushing Javier Salazar in front of him. Daniel Roberts as well, just pushing Samir Kadura as well. Fastest lap of the race so far goes to Miguel Beltran with a 136.759. I think he's only 9 thousandths up on the driver ahead of him in Estefano Barrera. Mikhail Charles, though, he's being hounded by Daniel Velez. Daniel not giving an inch and just saying, hey, just make one wrong move and I will be getting you. I'll take a quick look now as Kurt Moss is looking on the inside of Kimani Eastman and does get that move to go, as he now has Andres Quevedo in front of him. Again, points goes up to P15 and he's seeing if he can make two in this lap. Yes, he does. Looks very good so far in Kurt Massive. Mustappen, we call him, in the JSRA. Has had some unforeseen incidents this year in the season. It's been sad to watch, man. But still, it allows us to see him pull off some brilliant overtakes as we saw him do just yet. And there, just on the back end of that, his countryman, not his teammate. And you will hear me calling Francisco Garcia Javier Salazar. I think that's because that's what I know him as, but in iRacing you have to add names so you can not get a number behind it. So yeah, please excuse me if sometimes I call him Javier Salazar, but that's just what I know him as. But you will see him as Francisco Garcia, who is now in the middle of a battle between P8 to P11. Ladies and gentlemen, we have about 10 minutes remaining, then we'll have a reverse grid of 25 minutes. I believe that's where the dramatics are going to come in at a very high rate. As you see Taj Edwards there, he's just in a race by himself, as well as Felipe Yil, 2 seconds ahead of him. 3 seconds ahead of Felipe is Daniel Moreno on the top three. And behind them is Mikhail Charles and Luis Daniel Velez. This has been a fun one to watch here. Not much room for overtaking You gotta be creative. Turn 1 is going to be one of the better places for overtaking, as a matter of fact. I saw one in our GT3 race later last year when Daniel Roberts just sneaked one in, unassuming, on lap 1, led the race up until the final lap, and then the last was taken. These Porsche Cup cars at this track. Spa next week is going to be very fun to watch, as a matter of fact. And there you see him there again, takes it inside, and that's where again you have to be creative. Michael Charles, that's him in the background. Oh, Samir not giving up the position yet, but Daniel Roberts looks like he may have gotten it down. Daniel Velez would have moved up a position. That's his Samir. He's still looking. Does a dive on the inside, a little bit of a tap, pushes Daniel Roberts wide, and the two go back into side-by-side action as the racing continues. This is the battling that we've been waiting for. Samir is not conceding that position as they head on now to the pit straight, and it's going to be 2-on-2 heading into turn 1. This is going to be dramatic, to say the least, as the drivers will now be heading in. You're seeing there David Tuta just sitting in the slipstream. Trying to go later on the brakes. Javier Salazar later than Francisco on the brakes, and that sent him wide. Luckily no incident. Oh, we had a little bit moment there, a little brown pants moment, but luckily the drivers come out unscathed. Samir Kaduro continues on in P7. With Daniel Roberts there, just sitting there, just waiting on his moment to fight and take back that position. But there goes David Tuta, who saw an opportunity and now pushes Daniel Roberts wide. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen, but now the battling will continue. Daniel Roberts sits. Javier Salazar there, not too far behind. Davil Park is watching and waiting for his moment. Michael Charles, though, let's see what had happened with him. Yeah, as we wait for what had happened or for the next moves ahead, but this was a battle between Michael and Daniel Velez. The two were side by side. There's contact, and that sent Michael into the wall. Luckily not race ending, but still enough to relegate him down a few positions. Was he closing him out there? The stewards, I'm sure, will be taking a look at that at the end of the race. But with 5 minutes remaining, we've had 21 on the track. But boy, oh boy, it's not been without action from start to finish. And there you're seeing Samir, the Cuban, just holding off the Colombian and the Jamaican right behind him. There is a reverse grid coming, and with the defense that we've seen here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, what is there to expect? There you see David Tuta there, just took a look, still nowhere to go. And just looking through now at some of the battles that we may have missed. And we'll continue to watch that because this battle is continuing onwards. The fight for P7. The reverse grid on the way. The slipstream. You see the drivers just sitting and waiting. Will Daniel Roberts be taking a look? He's taking a long way around, as a matter of fact. And that will be the better line for him as he heads on now into turn 3. And there, contact between David and Samir. And that gives him the opportunity to move up a position. David moves up one as well. Samir relegated 2 in 1. And that's going to be interesting to watch. Miguel, though, he and Estefano have switched places. What happened there? Let's take a quick look at that. This was an overtake. Yup, it was a move done on merit. Miguel wanted that position. Yes, they're teammates, but hey, Miguel is in a battle with Daniel Moreno for that P4 and P5. Daniel Roberts, though, him and Samir enjoying this battle here this evening. And now this is going to help David Tuta, but they're the two side by side. I think they have been putting on the most of the action as they've been side by side for 90% of this race. And that's just bringing in more drivers. The Bill Park there and Francisco Javier Salazar there right behind. And the switcheroo for Daniel Roberts. Mead Mount now push wide. But he will have the inside line and the run heading into turn 1. There you see them flat-footed. Down into 1, into 2, pushes him wide, elbows are out. The 2 inside now, they gotta look nowhere to go though. Looked a little bit sketchy for a second there. And the Ville Park has now gotten into the mix. He did make a move on Francisco Javier. But now it's just lending it to David Tuta to get away as quickly as possible. As the Ville Park now and Javier Salazar make contact. And Javier now sent into the wall. Mikhail Charles there, right there in the background. That's Kurt Moss as well. He comes around. P12. Can he get in the positions for the reverse grid? Samir there again takes the look on the inside to push Daniel Roberts wide. And this battle will continue on. We have about 40 seconds remaining. Daniel Roberts so continues onwards. Tried to close the door, but it was too late. Samir was right there. And Samir again pushing him wide. So this is going to be a battle until the end. Miguel Beltran, Estefano, and Daniel Moreno are on the final lap as well. That Ville Park there again. You're seeing him back in the fold. Dan Robb is alongside as it stands as they head into turn the final corner, and they will be straight away now down the pit straight into turn 1. You're seeing Samir there trying to close the door, and this will be the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the one that's going to count the most. As you see him bounce on the curb and contact between the two. The Ville Park now, he moves up into P8. Daniel Roberts into P9 and Samir Kaduro. It looks like Daniel conceded that point. Bumpy. But Harji Barji is what my old cohort would say. And the two continue onwards as this battle will continue onwards for the first. right now as it sounds, the fat lady just sang. Miguel Beltran takes P1, Estefano in P2, and Daniel Moreno in P3. Felipe Yil, quiet race for him. He finishes off in P4, and P5 goes to Mr. Daniel Velez. But the battle is not over as yet. Taj Edwards for P5. Daniel Velez should be passing out now. Yes, he does. He finishes off in P6. But this battle between Samir and Daniel Roberts continues on to the end. Davil Park finishes off in P7 and David Tuta in P7, sorry, Davil Park in P8, Samir Kadura in P9, Daniel Roberts will be starting on pole position for race 2, he starts in P10, Mikhail Charles in P11, Kurt Moss in P12, P13, Kimani Eastman, he comes around now in P14. And we have Andres Quevedo coming around now, the final corner, as he'll finish the final point standings in P15. Julian Narcisse in P16. Mikhaili Guzmao in P17 as well. Where is she? Yeah, she's coming around the final sector now. But wow, from BROT. But wow, what a race this was. That battle between Samir and Daniel, it started and it just wouldn't end. Daniel will be starting on pole position, heading in. As Mikhaili now crosses to finish off in P7. But taking the victory here this evening is Mr. Miguel Beltran. Made that move on merit, as a matter of fact, against the likes of Estefano Barrera, who I'm sure would have loved more points to build that gap between himself and Felipe. But Miguel, he's in his own battle with Daniel Moreno, so we know that that was going to come. We have about 6 minutes to warm up on the way. Get some water, get some food, as we prepare for the next 25 minutes of racing. Miguel Beltran takes victory here this evening in race 1. Estefano Barrera in finishes off in P2. Daniel Moreno in P3. Felipe Yil in P4. Taj Edwards in P5. Daniel Velez in P6. David Tuta in P7. Davil Park in P8. Samira Kadura in P9. Daniel Roberts in P10. Mikhail Charles in P11. Kurt Moss in P12. Francisco Garcia, also known as Javier Salazar, he finishes out in P13. Kimani Eastman in P14. Andres Quevedo is what I know him as, but Mogoleon, he finishes out in the final points positions in P15. Julian Narcisse in P16. Mikhaili in P17. Joshua Brady in P18. Richard Dyer in P19. Bruno Yoshihara in P20. What an evening of racing that was for race 1. Stay tuned for the reverse grid. We'll have Mr. Daniel Roberts with that same battle with the Cuban in Samir Kaduro right there behind him in P2. This is going to be very interesting to watch, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back in a moment's time. And the wait is over. We are back with racing in 2026. The season kicks off with the Porsche Cup. Dynamic conditions, 8 iconic tracks, drivers throughout the Caribbean and the world fighting for glory in the new revamped Porsche Cup. This is promising to be the best season yet at the Jsra as we lead into season 2 with the GT3 Championship. Drivers fighting for the top step of the podium. They've returned for the fight, and the glory will be theirs. And side by side, the two drivers as it's a sprint race down the Canal Straight. And Michael Charles now sends a move down the inside into turn 7. Huge lockup. Maris Garcia sees the error and runs away with it. 7 Mile Racing chasing in the background for P1. The season begins January 23rd, 2026. Sponsored by Shotels. And ladies and gentlemen, we are about to get racing.
Green flag, green
Here
flag.
this evening. Who was that pulled off to the side? Couldn't tell you. We'll hear about it later, I'm sure. Yep, that's Kurt Moss. But Daniel Roberts, after a brilliant start here, he gets away quickly. DeVille Park, Jamaica now will help him out by just getting in the way. Ooh! And that's an incident there. A major pile-up as well. DeVille Park. Looks like he and Samir got caught up there on lap turn 1, so we'll hear about that later, I'm sure. Daniel Roberts, I'm sure, will be trying his best to get away as quickly as possible from those behind him. Samir Kadura in P2, David Tuta in P3, Felipe Yil Estefan and Daniel Moreno already in the top 6. Miguel Beltran in P7. Kurt Masso, he is nowhere to be found. He's in the pits. Mikhail Charles out. Kurt Moss out. Bruno Yoshihara out. Mikhaili in the pits. And what a start here this evening for race 2, but the racing will go on. Samir chased by David Tuta. We saw what kind of defense he had, so let's see what he has for the Colombians behind him, because that's a train of Noble Racing drivers all the way down to P8. Taj Edwards in P9, DeVille Park in P10. Let's see what he can do. Estefano Barrero, he's going to want to get ahead of Felipe Yil to try and capitalize on the points ahead of his. Well, Felipe is the championship leader currently on points. Came in leading by 13. Reminder that we haven't calculated the drop score as yet, so at the end that could change. Right now, Felipe Yil is in the lead of the championship. We'll continue to watch. There is Rich Diane, Kimani Eastman fighting it out. Taj Edwards in DeVille Park already. Where's Taj? Taj is out. Not sure what happened with him. We'll check it in a second. And already 5 drivers out in only 3 minutes of racing. Let's take a look at what happened there at the start. It started with Francisco Javier. Yep, there you see it. Ouch! And that's Javier, and is that Mikhaili, or I think it's Mikhaili. Yep, at the start of the race. So that's going to be painful there. And then the next one was the one in DeVille Park. This is him and Samir Kaduro. Yep, Samir just tried to squeeze it in and nowhere to go for the Colombians or Taj. And relegated right there. That was painful to watch. Daniel Moreno, 10th off of Estefano. So right now, the racing is separated by 2. Yep, let's watch this as Estefano and Daniel get in front of Felipe Gil. He loses 3 positions there. Let's just take a quick look as we like our hair. Yeah, not seeing what happened. He just... Let's see. Yep, just lost the back end there for a second. Gave an opportunity for those behind him, and they just continued onwards. David Tuta now still chasing down Samir Kaduro. This is looking like his best finishing position, but we have about 20 minutes remaining. And about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more Colombians behind him, chasing him for that title or that final podium position, especially Estefano, who I'm sure is grateful that he passed Felipe Gil, but Daniel Moreno now passes him for P4. And this is going to get interesting because Daniel is fighting Miguel for the points between P4 and P5, but Estefano is fighting with Felipe Gil for P1 and P2 in the championship. Daniel Roberts now, he has a good lead ahead of everybody else. We've seen it in the past. Once he gets to start in P1, he normally gets away relatively quickly, especially on the reverse grids. We won't speak too soon. Daniel Moreno now spun. Ooh, that was close to Deville Park as well. My word, what an evening of racing this has become. So let's just take a look. This was him and Estefano. Ooh, he just lost it. No fault of his teammate. Daniel just overcooked those tires and is now relegated down into P9. So we'll continue onwards. Joshua Brady now chasing down Kimani Eastman, but David Tuta. This is a battle that we'll be watching for the foreseeable future. Fastest lap goes to Daniel Roberts with a 1:37.356. Estefano though, that's his countryman in front of him, but not his teammate. We saw the defense that this driver had earlier on, him and the Cuban in Samir. This will be a great buffer for Daniel Roberts. I'm sure Estefano doesn't want to stay behind these drivers for too long, just in case of any move that can be made, especially in the latter stages of this race. So there goes Estefano, just sitting in the slipstream of David Tuta. Guessing, and he's seen the damage on his rear diffuser from that earlier incident on lap 1, turn 1. No fault of his own in Estefano. It was sad to see. You're seeing the pace difference here. Estefano pushing him through the corners. Wants to get away as quickly as possible. That battle between Julian and Andres, though, we'll watch that because it's about 4 drivers there. Joshua Brady getting into the mix. He saw a position there. Takes it from Julian. He moves up into P11. We'll go back to that battle between Estefano and David in a moment. Well, here we are. My apologies. But Joshua Brady now seeing if he can make the move on Andres Quevedo. Continue to watch that from in the timing tower, because this is one that we want to see. The battle between, for the final podium position, as a matter of fact, in P2. There you see David trying to make the move there on Samir. But Samir, we saw him making some really questionable defensive moves. But hey, this is racing, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll see what can happen. Samir there knows where to put that car. Stefano, I'm sure, will be trying to get in front of them as quickly as possible. There you see David, though. He pulls to the side, almost lets him through. So Estefano, Miguel Beltran, now they move up 2 positions. Will David concede it? Yes, he will. He'll act as a buffer now for Felipe Gil, who I'm sure will be trying his best to get through as quickly as possible. A train behind the Cuban in Samir Kadura. Felipe making quick work of David Tuta there. Didn't take him very long to get through. So, Samir now being chased by Estefano, being chased by Miguel Beltran, being chased by Felipe Gil, about a second behind him. See the power of the slipstream here. You can see him just inch closer and closer and closer as they head down into turn 1. Flat-footed. Slight lift there by Miguel. No sense forcing the issue. As Estefano continues onward to try and make the pass as quickly and cleanly as possible and get in front of the Cuban. But we saw him in race 1 made a long and horrible time for Daniel Roberts. And Daniel, you're seeing him pull a 5-second gap so far. So if he could have just gotten in front, I mean, it's not even the pace, it's the defense that we're going to be watching for here this evening. We'll continue to watch onwards as the two will continue on their battle. Estefano now on the podium. I'm sure would love to capitalize on the points against Daniel Roberts to extend that gap even that much further. He would have extended it from race 1, but even to close in a little bit more on Felipe. Felipe came in P4 in the first race. He's now in P5. Now goes Estefano. Takes a look on the inside as they head into turn 1. Looked dramatic. Goes wide. All looks clean so far. Side by side action as they head out to turn 4. Samir, though, that's what you're seeing. He's not afraid to put that car and make it as wide as possible. Estefano now still cannot make that move done. Felipe Gil just sitting in the slipstream just watching. You've seen him consistent after race after race after race. Don't count him out here. Miguel, he's now going to feel the pressure off the driver in front of him and the driver behind him. It's Felipe only 5/10 off. There goes Estefano again. Looks on the inside, uses a curb. Does look like he finally got that move done. Ooh, Samir backed out. Looked a little bit sus there for a second, but the driver's got out of it clean. Loses 2 positions in 1. Felipe Gil now, he's trying to see if he can get in front. There you see him take that curb. But Samir trying his best here this evening, just making that car wider than it should be. That Porsche Cup is already pretty wide, if I do say so myself, on a track that's so narrow and so difficult to pass in. He's just putting that car exactly where it needs to be as the battling continues onwards. Look at the closeout. Oh, what a beautiful sunset. And normally the sunset is about 6:15. if I remember correctly. So the in-game time is about 5:30 right now. Ooh, and oh yes, it was contact. I was wondering how it looks so close. So Samir and Felipe in an incident together. That's going to be brilliant for Estefano and Daniel. There you see it. The two just made contact. David got out. Everybody else got out, luckily. Samir now relegated to P9. Felipe into P8. Daniel Velez now in P5, chasing down David Tuta. For P4, Miguel Beltran. Right there on the back of Estefano. He made the move in race 1. Can he make the move in race 2? So while we've been watching this, there's been a battle for P12 between Julian and Kimani Eastman. This is a battle for P12. A very good fight between the two. Right now Kimani looking at the better of the two to get out of it. But that battle will continue on. So right now we watch Daville Park. He's had a brilliant 2 race. Saw the move, saw the motive. I just took that as his opportunity to slide in. It's not together last week at the Virginia International. In the case of points, Daniel will be helping Daniel out. Maybe. Let's see how it goes. Maybe he can just do it on merit, but you're seeing him with the pace difference. Daniel Velez looking like he's taking that wide line. 2 side by side. There you see him backing out of it, but that does put him under threat by Daville Park. But Daniel Velez, now we've seen him do some brilliant, clean defense. As you see, Daville there took the switcheroo. Go side by side. Did look like a little bit of bumping, but does make the move to get through Daniel Velez. He moves up back into P6. Daniel Moreno in P5. That looked like a clean move there by Daville Park. We'll take back another look at it. And noticing there, Samir Kaduro did end up crashing. That's why you're seeing him in the pit lane right now. 14 drivers, 6 out so far. What an evening of dramatics. A little bit too much. So this was the incident with Samir. Looks like he just lost the car. Yup, overcooked. Those tires are just cooked, as the young kids would call it. And that's coming off of the incident with himself and Felipe Yield. So, pain for him. Pain for him there. We continue onwards. Let's take a look there. We actually had a fight between David Tuta and Daniel Moreno for P4. This was that one. David Tuta had the defensive line. Had the position for a second, but nowhere to go for Daniel Moreno. He continue his bid to move up in positions. Roughly about 5.5 minutes remaining. Let's call it about 5 minutes. As Daniel Moreno now as they head down into turn 1, side by side with his countryman. Daniel Moreno looking like he's going to get that move to stick. Elbows are out, pushes him as wide as possibly can push him. Daniel moves up into P4. Damage limitation as he comes closer to his nearest rival. And Felipe Yield, he's found himself back here. And Daville Park, he's now seeing if he can sneak in through between himself and David Tuta. Now acts as a buffer between himself and the next Colombian behind. So right now, Daville Park in a brilliant finishing position with 4 minutes remaining. Daville putting on a show here this evening for you, ladies and gentlemen. This has been something, I don't want to say it's new and be offensive, but boy, it's such a refreshing sight to see. We saw him put on a show in Le Mans Ultimate when he came in late last season, and here he is again putting on another show. A masterclass drive for the Jamaican. David Tuta, Felipe Yield, Daniel Velez all chasing behind. I'm sure don't want to see the Jamaican in front of him, so what will that do in the standings as we come closer and closer? Joshua Brady showing the black flag. This means he will have a drive-through underway. He in a good points position right now in P9. That's going to relegate him back to about P13. But we'll continue onwards and see what is left. While we've been watching that 5-second gap has dwindled now to 2.5. Will there be a change in the order as we continue onwards? David Tuta did squeeze past, but Daville Park hasn't given it up as yet. And now Daniel Velez is gonna go look like 3 wide. Nope, thought better of it. Daville Park there though, not giving it up, but David Tuta has taken a position from him. Where will this lead them? David looking very promising here to continue onwards to fight for glory. The fight for P5, best of the rest. Best of the rest is Daniel Moreno on a race all by himself. But this battle is heating up between the two with final few laps to go. Daville not giving up that that position. Felipe Yield, he in P7. You know he's going to be one to force a move when he can. As you see there, Deville Park there on the side-by-side with David Tuta again. Hasn't given it up. Felipe Yield, though, he's now seeing his moment to squeeze through. And it looks like it's going to be moved on for Felipe. Deville now will be chasing. But Felipe now trying to dismantle the two on this lap with a minute remaining. And Felipe Yield does take the position. Deville Park as well gets in front of David Tuta for the time being at least. But David there puts the car right back there, side-by-side action again. And now Daniel Velez tries to put himself into the mix. And he tries to make the move on Deville Park's a pain for the Jamaican. After what a brilliant fight between himself and these drivers. But Felipe was the catalyst. He just saw his moment. Started in P7, now in P5. Had that early incident. So good damage limitation for him. After being taken out by Samir Kadura. But while we've been watching all of this unfold, ladies and gentlemen, with 25 minutes remaining, Estefano not far off Daniel Roberts. 1.2 seconds is the gap. This is the final lap, so we'll just ride along board with these two as they finish out. This is where the pressure will be coming in. Miguel Belcher not too far behind either, but Daniel Roberts looked good from the start, made and created that space early on, and that helped him to just pull that gap. But that gap now under a second. Estefano now breathing in the fumes of that Porsche Cup as they head through the final few sectors here. Daniel Roberts, though, it looks like he may have the gap good enough as he comes on to the pit straight. Estefano needed one more lap. 6/10 gap between them, but right now as it stands, for Team Jsra, Daniel Roberts finishes off in P1. Estefano in P2. Miguel Beltran finishes out in P3. Daniel Moreno, the next one up to cross the line in P4. Felipe Yield heading down now in P5. Brilliant move there to take P5 from David Tuta. David Tuta now in P6. Daniel Velez in P7. Deville Park is out. Daniel Velez in P7. Kimani Eastman P8. Andres Quevedo in P9. Well, they haven't crossed the line as yet, so we'll continue to watch that. But we'd love to see what had happened there with Deville. It looked as if it was a move between Daniel and Deville. So we'll take a look at that in a moment's time as Kimani Eastman comes across the line in P8. And good points for the Jamaican here, as well as Andres Quevedo. Julian Narcisse as well, P10. Joshua Brady in P11. Richard Dio in P12. Javier Salazar not too far behind, finishes out in P13. This is a crash between Deville Park. What had happened with him? It was side by side with himself and Daniel Velez, and ooh! That is pain for both of the drivers. Daniel, though, could get on racing quickly enough and maintain that P7 to finish out. But what a race this has been, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Roberts finishes off in P1. Let's just go over the championship, the race standings. Daniel Roberts finishes off in P1. Estefano in P2. Miguel Beltran in P3. Daniel Moreno in P4. Felipe Yield in P5. David Tuta in P6. Daniel Velez in P7. Kimani Eastman P8. Andres Quevedo in P9. Julian Narcisse in P10. Joshua Brady in P11. Richard Dio in P12. Francisco Garcia, Javier Salazar as I call him, in P13. Everybody below them did not finish. But what an evening of racing this has been, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get the interviews going so we don't keep you much longer. What an evening of racing this has been. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get beginning with the interviews in a moment. We're going to start with Daniel Moreno, but we do need a translator. So, just give me one moment. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, so we will be starting with uh, Daniel Moreno, who finished race 1 in P3. We'll have Estefano actually translate for him here this evening. But hey, Estefano, Daniel, can you hear us? Okay, okay, awesome. Just doing a quick fix here on the audio for the stream. Okay, could you do a mic check for me, please?
Okay.
Okay, awesome. All right, guys. Well, I mean, might as well just have the both of your interviews in one. But huge congratulations to both of you. We'll start with Daniel. This is Daniel Moreno, ladies and gentlemen, who finished P3 in race 1 and P4 in race 2. Would love to hear his thoughts on. Well, race 1 was a little bit, I would say, uneventful. He started with you guys, Estefano, and it was Miguel, and just could watch. So we'll hear his thoughts on race 1. Then he had a much more interesting race 2. Daniel, could you give us a little bit of insight?
Daniel, ¿me escuchas ahí?
Sí, hola.
¿Qué de estos pensamientos, tus sensaciones sobre la carrera 1 que pues no tuvo ningún evento grande?
Y, bueno, pues prácticamente todo parte de la quali, donde creo que eran más manos que setup. Nos ganó Miguel, increíblemente. Hace mucho no nos ganaba Miguel en una quali y pues se la llevó él. Entonces, prácticamente creo que la mentalidad de todos era pues no atacar si no había necesidad y más bien creo que a lo último de pronto arriesgar si se da la oportunidad, pero no pasó nada.
He said that it was everything about the qualifying session. He said he's congratulating Miguel because he did an awesome quali. He said we tried to go calm like the first half of the race and then just try something at the end depending on the pace of us, but it was kind of a strategy, just going in train and trying something at the end, and it worked.
Well, my next question now is in race 2, it was a little bit more eventful. He had a couple drivers to pass. Could you walk us through his battles as he had to take them out one by one, especially in the latter stages of the race?
Ahí te dice que hables de la carrera 2, que tuviste que remontar algunas posiciones por el trompo que tuviste y que des un poco pues tu opinión acerca de la batalla de las últimas vueltas, en la última fase de la carrera.
Bueno, ahí prácticamente no sé qué ocurrió prácticamente en el primer gancho, apenas arrancamos. Un incidente ahí, casi por poco y prácticamente un DNF. Ahí llegó un momento donde estaba detrás de Estefano, pero la pista estaba prácticamente como un jabón. Entonces ahí intercambiamos posiciones sin perder mucho tiempo, pero por lo mismo que estaba como un jabón, pues ahí lo perdí. Y traté de escalar posiciones, recuperar. Me sirvió que pelearan adelante para poder llegar. Encontré un poco de resistencia en David, pero pues prácticamente intenté no tocarlo, o sea, obviamente para no arruinar la carrera de él, sino simplemente mostrar el carro para tratar de que se equivocara. Se equivocó ahí saliendo para la recta y prácticamente ahí era cuidar el interior. Y pues capitalicé pues la cuarta posición, recuperé prácticamente.
So he says that the track was really slippery in the second race. He doesn't know what happened with the car that corner when he spun.
Yeah.
He said that he took advantage of the battles that were ahead because I'm talking also from my experience. We were trying to make the cars ahead fight with Daniel, so we could take some positions back, and it worked for him. Like he was saying, he had a nice battle with David Tuta. He was just trying not to touch him, not to hit him, and cause a mess. And said that he had an awesome strategy, and that it worked at the end to get the P4.
Awesome job. My next question and final one for you, Daniel. The battle for P4 and P5 in the championship, you guys came in separated by 6 points. How does it feel as you head into the next round, as we head to Circuito de Spa, Francochamps?
Ahí te dice que solo se separan 6 puntos entre tú y Daniel Roberts, creo. Que ¿Cómo te ves para la carrera de Spa dentro de 8 días?
Bueno, creo que prácticamente ahí va a ser de trabajo en equipo. Creo que es una pista donde si uno se pone a pelear va a perder demasiado. Entonces creo que obviamente el setup va a marcar diferencia, pero si nos apoyamos, creo que entre todos podemos sumar y pues intentar todos ganar la posición a Daniel.
So he says that we're gonna do teamwork as always, like the classic trend you see all the races, just to get the maximum points for us, and then to catch Daniel, of course, and then at the end of the race we try something else. It's always up to the situation of the race.
Well, huge congratulations to you, Daniel, and looking forward to you in the next round. Thank you for joining.
Muchas gracias, que te espero en la siguiente ronda.
Gracias, buenas noches.
good night.
Night. Well, Estefana, now it's your time. First of all, huge qualifying session. You were down by under a tenth of a second. I think it was 900th between yourself and Miguel. Could you walk us through your qualifying lap?
Yeah, I messed up the last sector, especially the last 3 or 4 corners. I lost. I think it was like nothing that I lost there, but of course it was a really hard track for me, especially with no setup. Also, it's a track I don't really like, so I did my train, and I was actually disappointed that I couldn't get the lap down. Although there were some situations later on the race, I don't know. I'm not happy with my qualifying, of course, because I had more time.
Well, I know the qualifying may have not been the best for you, but then, I mean, turn one, lap one, you sent a move on Miguel. How did that move come into your mind? And what were your thoughts as you were leading for the majority until he came and passed back?
Yeah, I'm very strong on racing start, standing and start, especially with this car. I don't really like using the right point, so I'm just with my left foot. It really works all the time because I'm more accurate with my left foot. We knew that if I had a better run than Miguel, he was not gonna defend, so we really didn't communicate. He understood, and later on the race, I did a mistake because the car was just becoming harder and harder to ride because of the humidity.
Yes.
So yeah, I didn't put many resistance because he was still faster than me. He was just not gonna risk
Right.
with a dangerous overtake. And when I made the mistake, it was time to let him by.
Okay, and then the next one now in race two, that battle. I mean, you were chasing Samir Kaduro. Give us thoughts on that battle. It. I mean, it was you and a few others for quite some time. How was that battle for you, firstly, and any thoughts on the battle as well?
Race two, track was really slippery. I think we were just sliding all over the place. So when we got close to the cars ahead, I was not gonna risk a penalty with an overtake because it's really hard to overtake and some people is really harsh at defending. So I was just waiting for them to make a mistake, and thankfully my teammates understood that I was in a really dangerous situation. If I made a dangerous move, it was over for me in the next race, and of course in the championship. So I'm glad they waited, especially Miguel, and I could get the overtake down. It was sad later because Daniel got a pretty big gap. So yeah, a second per lap wasn't just enough, and also I made a couple of mistakes, but still, I needed like 1 or 2 more laps to overtake him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not really happy with my result because I think I could have won at
One.
least one race.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. I think championship is getting over for me already, so we will see in the following races what happens.
Well, let's see. I mean, that's gonna be my next comment because you went in 13 points behind Felipe. You beat him twice this evening. Um, I mean, I know you said it was it's getting a little bit more difficult, but you still have hope, and I mean it's still very close between you two. So I am excited to see what's gonna happen, and remember there's 2 drop races as well. But as we head into the next round, what are your thoughts as we head into Spa?
I'm actually gonna try hard the track. I'm gonna make some setup takes. I'm gonna do a lot of laps. When I say a lot of laps, it's actually a lot of laps because I actually need to try hard now. Before the races before, I didn't train just enough. Maybe time, maybe I was also a bit lazy sometimes. But I really want to win it, and I think I actually serve it after all the things that has happened to me, especially in the first race. It was pretty
Yes,
unfortunate. So we will see what's to come.
absolutely, Estefana. You know I'm one of your biggest fans, brother. So good luck to you, and looking forward to seeing you next week as we head into round 7 at Circuit de Spa.
Thank you. I will be there. Thank you for hosting, of course. Always good racing.
Thank you as well, brother. Bless you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Estefano Barrero, who finished off both races in P2 we now have Mr. Daniel Roberts, who started in P5 in race 1. He did drop 2 positions at turn 1, fell into P7, and after that it was drama. But Daniel, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Daniel, I mean, I know you might be a little bit disappointed with the result this evening, but we'll start off with qualifying. How was your lap?
It was awful. Like I lost 5 tenths between last practice, like the practice session midweek, and this race, and then I lost 5. I would say like probably 3 tenths from the weekend to this. I mean to that. So yeah, I just I just lost like almost 8 tenths, like just over a week. I don't know what happened, but yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering if it was a setup change, maybe a late setup change. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, there was a late setup change, just because all I did was just keep dialing it back until it was just like no front end and whatever. So just like overall just a slower car, but that's just
Yeah.
because I could handle the faster car, so
Yeah.
like the faster setup. So yeah, it's weird, but whatever.
Well, you started P5. Didn't say exactly what had happened at the start. Why you got relegated 2 positions? Could you walk us through it?
Okay, well lap 1, I went for an overtake on P6. I think it's David. The only reason I went for it was because I lost the rear under braking, and to avoid contact, I just had to go for it. And anyways, that worked out fine because again, he left space, he didn't turn in. And then, what, 2, 3 laps later, I felt like I was closer than that first lap. Uh, and I was like actually like accelerating towards the apex, like already, so just closing the gap. So I was like, all right, I'll go for it now. And again, because I don't want to like just dive bomb completely, I'm not like being wild under the brakes and just like not having full control. So therefore, like like my what I would say like a third of my car is in, and then he just turns in. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like,
Right.
I've already committed to going for the overtake. Yeah, and if you were watching any of the other battles that were pretty close, like lap by lap, yeah, like the other guy would do dive bombs, but you know, like there's like, what am I gonna do? Just turn in? Like, there's no point. It's just gonna be an accident. So I just let the
Right.
steering wheel
Right.
open and just like let the battle continue as it should. Like, it's maybe not the best way. Like, obviously there should be a certain way, like gap where people don't just like send it. But I don't know. Like, I just feel like everyone just needs to open up their steering wheel a little more than they are in this series.
Yeah, it was disappointing to see you fall back down, if I do say so myself. After that though, you did have that battle between yourself, Samir, and David for quite some time. Walk us through that battle.
Yeah, it was just a good battle.
It was side by
Like,
side for 90%
yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, sometimes I definitely thought he was too aggressive.
Aggressive.
Uh,
Yeah.
but like the reason why to me it's balanced because when I was being aggressive with him, he would open up steering wheel. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So like it's balanced in that way. You know what I mean? But if you have guys like going hard for dives and then not opening the steering wheel, then you just can't like it's just
Yes.
not balanced essentially.
Right.
So that's why I didn't really. Some of his moves were extremely crazy. I'm just like, why would you even do this? You're so far behind. And like I would say maybe his like front bumper was in the turn, but there's sometimes he probably wasn't even like his front bumper wasn't even beside me, and I still like would leave the space. Like I would open up the steering wheel just a tiny
Yeah.
bit, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just again to avoid contact. But yeah, it was fun. Like obviously it
It was
wasn't really for
clean
too
hard
much.
racing. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like obviously it was like 10th, 9th, 8th. But yeah, obviously finishing 10th, I just go first for the reverse grid. But I was also so slow like overall that I knew like I really thought reverse grid like me being first like starting pole won't really help much. But I don't know, I just got lucky in that second race. So
Yeah, well, I will say, I mean, Samir, then there was an incident on lap 1. He acted as a buffer. You built a 5.5 second gap to him. And I don't want to say you're cruising the way through because I know humidity, tire temps, everything would have been getting cooler, so the car would have gotten harder to drive. Estefano started closing in up until the final lap. What were your thoughts through that process?
yeah, so I think I was doing fine laps. Like I knew like there's no way he was that much faster than me. And then I did a bad lap where it was like he gained, like I think I was
About a
a
second and
second,
change, yeah.
yeah, I was a second slower than my good lap. And then he was also like running 6 cents faster than me, so it was like he gained like almost 2 seconds
2
on me.
seconds,
And I was
yeah.
like, all right, like I need to like actually focus. You know what I mean? So yeah, and then then towards the end, I realized the gap was big enough that like I don't really need to focus that much, and you know
Yeah.
he finished 0.6 behind. So again, completely lucky. Honestly, if I were him, I'd be upset, because you know he obviously had the pace. I was kind of wondering why he wasn't able to get past those guys earlier, but
It
yeah,
was a
worked
similar
out in my
thing to
favor.
you in race one. Samir just put that car in places. I would say, I know Jaden was missing this evening, but your next
Yeah,
best teammate was Samir here this evening. So,
yeah.
kudos to him. But
Oh,
yeah,
he was really battling them.
you could watch
Oh,
your
I love
replay, man.
that. I can imagine. Yeah, no, because the way he was battling me, I can only imagine. But again, like, but you see what happens though. Like, you know, he's battling me like that, and then what he retired that race. It's you know, like it's risky, you know,
Yeah,
unless you're driving with someone
yeah,
who's like gonna lead, like open his steering wheel, you're just gonna get into accidents. So
right. Well, nonetheless, man, congrats. It's still a good haul of points. You came in 16 points behind P1
Mhm.
in the championship.
Who was P1?
Felipe Yil, who's leading with 156 points. Estefano is 143. And I
Mm.
think you are 100. I'll double check it. But you're 16 points behind P1. So you can
Yeah,
do the maths quickly.
I just need a double win at Spa, and I'll be fine.
And you'll be
I mean,
fine, exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So
I
that's
just
my
need
next
to
question now.
set
Heading
myself.
into, I think you just answered my next question.
Yeah.
Heading into Spa, what are your final thoughts?
Uh,
I know you answered it, but still.
yeah, like I definitely think Spa is my best track by a pretty long margin and or big margin, so it shouldn't be too difficult to maybe not a double victory, but at least a victory and a podium. So yeah, that's just what I'm gonna do. I just need to not mess up essentially, and that should be the outcome.
Well, Dan, huge points for you this evening. I know race one didn't go as planned, but still, congratulations, bro. And looking forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you too.
All right, bye.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Daniel Roberts. And finally, we'll have Miguel Beltran, who finished race 1 in P1, finished race 2 in P3. But it was a brilliant race for him both, as well as a brilliant qualifying. Miguel, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Well, Miguel,
Hello, guys.
how are you, man? What a qualifying for you this evening. Starting on pole, how did it feel?
Yeah, well, it's very great. I think, yes, it's the first ball, first win. That was awesome. I just know that there's some tracks that you are not really good. In this track, it's one of them.
Yes, it was. It was good to watch as well. We've heard Estefano, his point of view on that pass that you made. But we start with turn one. He got a better launch off than you. How did it feel? Did you feel worried that you could make the move later down in the race? And when you did make the move, how did it feel that you could take back P1 with about 5 minutes remaining, having to hold off Estefano?
Yeah, that was a very bad start, so I had to wait for opportunity. We are teammates. I just have not tried to passing him just because we're yeah. Uh, that was no reason to take a race. But he did a little mistake, so I take the opportunity and keep back the first position.
Yes.
Yes, I just wait behind him. I have the pace and just wait for the opportunity.
Okay, and then the next thing too, in the championship standings, you're actually P4 in the championship standings, right ahead of your next teammate in Daniel Moreno. You came in 6 points ahead of him. You'd have extended that gap here this evening between yourself and him. How does it feel? And as you head to Spa and the championship is coming to a conclusion, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I Spa is very tough, but it's one of the strongest tracks for me.
Yes.
So I hope I could I would get a good restaurant in Spa and close to the championship. It's very tight in this moment. So yeah, maybe 7 it would be complicated for me, but I hope in Spa will be another good result.
I'm hoping so too, man. It's amazing to see you in the not for the first time, but on the top step of the podium for the interviews, man. And huge congratulations, huge haul of points as well. So congratulations to you, brother. Any last words before we close out the stream?
That was a very good league in this moment. Just very fun. I'm not fan for this car, but I am enjoying too much in this moment. So thank you for this effort for bringing us this competition, this league. So good night. Thank you for it.
Thank you as well, Miguel. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you next week for Spa-Francorchamps. And congratulations again.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, that was Miguel Beltran. He took P1 in race 1 after a brilliant overtake on Estefano. As you heard them both say, he did make a mistake, but hey, to take the position, you have to be there. So he was right there for the taking, and then finished out in P3 in the second race. Brilliant, huge point scoring for him. This does bring us to the end of another stream as we close out round 6. I'm guessing the stewards are going to be busy again. So we'll keep you guys updated with all of the point standings as we continue onwards with the championship. We head into round 7 next week at Spa-Francorchamps. A very popular track. You heard Daniel Roberts there, very excited for it. We had Snetterton slated first, but the drivers voted it out. So we have 2 more rounds remaining, one at Spa, one at Sebring. We look forward to seeing the competitors coming out now, fighting out for the final stages of this championship. It's been amazing bringing this action to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been your host, Stephen Stewart, president at the JSRA, and I bid you a very good night. And that brings us to the end of another wonderful race weekend. We thank you for joining us as the drivers put on a show, fighting for the top step of the podium. But we will see you again next week as the drivers return for the next round. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing you the action, the drama, and all the battles here at the JSRA. Huge thank you to our sponsors, Shotels, who without them none of this would be possible. And a grander shout out to our Lord Jesus Christ, who without him none of this would be a thing. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful evening and a great night.